Good evening, everyone, and it's bright and early in the morning once again here in California that's been very sunny and very warm lately. And I would add to what both Prisha and Bara said in the context of this particular subject for children and families. I have also directed our children's choir. Prisha hinted on many plays for children or with children. And so they're very, very much a part of my life and a part of sharing the flower essences with them. And even before that, if we could rewind a little bit to say, give you a big welcome in India. I've been to India 4 times in the past. The first time in 1987 on pilgrimage, completely changed my life. And then 3 times at the invitation of J. Donald Walters, also called Swami Kriyananda, in 2004 and 2005 to establish the flower essences more solidly, and to give my deepest thanks also to Devendra, who has given so much of his own essence and spirit to building this work and reaching out and touching so many lives. So we're off to a good start. We have very little time for a very profound subject. And please know, of course, this is Zoom. I'm on the other side of the world, but there is a unity. There's a deeper unity that we all share. And I'm hoping each one of you will experience this very brief, now less than an hour, in a very immediate and a very personal way. The flower essences, yes, I've created them, and in many ways they're mine, but they are also yours. And this brief time is to help that happen for you and to banish the illusion of time and space. The way I like to do that, as Prisha knows, is to start with one of our students here, a beautiful rhododendron, and to offer this plant on your behalf, a flower essence. Here you see the American version of the label and the bottle. Today I chose spinach essence. If we do have an essence for childhood, it would be spinach for simplicity, and a not very often used word, guilelessness. What does that mean? That means completely true. It means without any pretense or falsehood. It means being a child with that sense of trust, that sense of wonder in this world, in every day. The spinach plant itself is only 40 days from being planted to being a wonderful salad or in a curry on your table. 40 days. So it grows very quickly. You might say, as our children, in a sense, seem to grow up very quickly. So what does that mean? Simplicity, guilelessness, overcoming worldly wisdom. It's that childhood innocence, and it is excellent for stress. I'm sure you've never experienced any of that in your life, but what I'm going to do is dose myself as well as our plant friend. And I would like you to really, really open your heart and see if you can feel through this plant that will act as a conduit to have you experience this energy. I'll drop it in the soil, several drops, because we take flower essences, several drops, several times a day, not with food, because that's a very involved process for the body, and you want your life force, your body temple, to be able to receive the essence. And I'll also share some with myself and get that good message of, and I put it on my wrist. You can take it under the tongue or rub it on the wrist and rub it in as you would a perfume. Just sit with that for a moment, and as you do, I'd like to read to you the Spinach Essence Affirmation, because with our complicated human brains, we kind of need all the help we can get, don't we, to get the mind and the subconscious mind, especially where affirmations work so well, to be in agreement. So please listen. I'll repeat this affirmation 3 times. The first 2 times, please repeat it after me responsively. Whatever comes to me is for my highest good. I welcome it. Let that absorb into your subconscious with this message of spinach essence. Whatever comes to me is for my highest good. I welcome it. And one more time, just mentally only, whatever comes to me is for my highest good. I welcome it. And I'll share with you, there was a time when I was living in Italy, outside of Assisi, and I could not get enough of spinach essence. Usually you'll take an essence for 1 to 2 weeks. I needed it. I absolutely needed it for 6 weeks. And I fell in love with the affirmation. At night when I would take my dosage, I would fall asleep reciting that affirmation. Whatever comes to me is for my highest good. I welcome it. What does that exemplify, if not a sense of trust? Instead of pushing away an obstacle, we transmute it into an opportunity by embracing it. Not that we're asking for it, but when it does come, nobody wants to ask their karma to blindside them, which it sometimes does. But we do want to be welcoming and not resisting. So, Prisha, on that note, what are your thoughts? What would you like to ask, share, have move forward? We have so much to cover.
Really, I think we could probably talk for about 5 hours straight in this interview. But I would like to pick up on something you have said often, which is there is a strong connection between the essences and foods, and that they are good clues for parents to know what to do with their kids as far as essences. So could you pick up on that?
Thank you, because in asking that question, you have raised the question: how do I know which flower essence or essences to give my children, my family members, my husband, etc.? And these are so simple. Flower essences are from nature. Nature is not complicated. Our own soul is not complicated. And yet our lives are very complicated, aren't they? So Prisha mentioned what we call the flower food connection. And that means look to your child's propensity for certain kinds of food that will change. And we're not talking here about, certainly for children, not coffee and maybe not candy, except if there is that kind of craving, it can be, as one saint explained, a need for sweetness in our lives, in which case we would go to date essence or tender sweetness. And how do we achieve that sweetness? By not judging others and by recognizing the unity between all living things. So maybe your child is wanting coconut on the morning granola, perhaps not even in a food form, maybe coconut shampoo, who knows, coconut oil, which is used a lot in cooking, to look for these food cravings. It very well can be the higher self, the intuition of your child, knowing I want that vibration. That is the vibrational vitamin that I'm looking for. That's a phrase that I've coined. When we eat the food source, we are, of course, receiving numerous vitamins, minerals, all kinds of things that will nourish the body. But what Paramhansa Yogananda explained, that in foods are also the psycho-spiritual qualities of very sattvic energies. I know with this audience, I don't have to explain that word sattvic, but I will for people who will see the recording of this video. Sattvic is a universal, spiritual, uplifting, expansive energy with calmness, with energy. So it's easier than we might think to choose what flower essence a child needs. And you have an incredible, I call it a safety net, to know these are not biochemical medications, where you have to be very careful what you give, not just the medicine itself, but the dosage. That is not the case with flower essences. They are vibrational. Instead of biochemical, they do not need to pass through the bloodstream, the digestive system, and sort of build up for a while in order to work. Some medications will take up to 3 weeks. Flower essences can be instant in how they affect our consciousness. And I will cut to the chase and explain to you what flower essences are, how they work. They are herbal infusions that stimulate our positive qualities. That's end of story, but we could elaborate and say they stimulate, they awaken, they influence qualities that we already have. And isn't that good news? Other flower essence companies have their own definitions. It's not yet standardized in this country, at least, with a definition as we have for chamomile tea, for curry as a spice, how it can affect the body. Flower essences, again, because they work vibrationally, they can touch us on so many levels, but they do have a key word or keywords as their qualities, as their main features, as spinach for simplicity or guilelessness. So, Krisha, I've given quite a big explanation there. I hope I've touched at least a little bit on the issue at hand. And then I will show you the American flyer to further simplify. And I know there's something similar on the Indian website, yoganandafloweressences.com. And here, summarized, to develop these qualities, try these flower essences. It couldn't be more simple. Oh, I see my child maybe bouncing off the walls a little bit too much. Let me try lettuce essence. I see exams coming up in March, which I think we'll talk about a little bit more very soon. How can I help my child prepare and enjoy his or her studies and have a more focused, concentrated mind? Avocado essence for good memory, wonderful for exams and for the joy of learning. We have countless testimonials for each of these 20 flower essences that I sort of touched on, that are based on these psycho-spiritual qualities of the food sources. And then I have gone to the fruit trees, the vegetable plants, and prepared flower essences according to a very simple, again, that word, method. I always go like this. This is the clear bowl. It's filled with pure spring water. It's a clear, sunny, vibrant morning when the blossoms of the particular food source of that tree or that plant or that stalk are in full bloom. They're at their peak of bloom. If those flowers, not touching them with my own hands, but taking a leaf from the plant or tree to insulate and keep my vibration out of that bowl of the mother essence, as it's called, and covering the surface with the blossoms, leaving it in direct sunlight, not a single cloud in the sky for 3 to 4 hours. There we have our mother essence, preserved in a dark bottle which is how you will see the essences blue, brown, whatever, to make sure there's no sunlight from that point. Now, if you want to maintain the shelf life of your essence, try to keep it, not try, please do actually keep it out of heat, out of sunlight, out of humidity, tightly sealed and upright. Okay, we're good to go.
So, Lila, before we go any further, you've talked about spinach and avocado essence. They aren't flowers, but your business is called Flower Essences. So, what's going on here?
Okay, thank you. Another great question. There is no spinach in this bottle. There is no tomato sauce in tomato essence for strength and courage. We do go to the blossoms, and it's that flower food connection that helps with your assessment of what your child or family member or yourself or friends or cats or dogs or plant as well would need. But we do only work with the blossoms. And as I was explaining this mother essence process, the flowers are skimmed off, so you won't even find any flowers in the bottle. They're very carefully strained out of that formula. So you are getting the energy from the blossoms. And as I've said many, many times, it is the flower of a plant or tree or stalk, as in the case of banana, that contains 90% of the plant's life force or prana. So how many cherries for cheerfulness do you have to eat to start bringing forth that quality in yourself? We don't know. A bushel, maybe two, in what you receive in only those several drops of the flower essences. It's a remarkable and an incredibly powerful form of accelerating our growth, of having our insights sooner rather than later, of how we can live happier, more productive lives on a higher level, on a truer level of who we really are. And you will see this. If anything, I would say I downplay their effectiveness because I want to have them maintain a level of credibility. You'll see for yourselves. And the beauty, I want to anticipate this question from Prisha. Why do children respond so quickly? Well, I think any of us could answer that. It's their purity. We want to say their innocence, but of course, we all come into this world with experience already. And it is their childlike nature and that trusting side, represented by our spinach essence, that allows that connection without the skepticism that sometimes encroaches on the more adult mind. Although I have shared, and I believe also last week, that sometimes skeptics make the very best clients because they are putting out energy to understand, to challenge, to try to know better what's going on here. So children are very good candidates for the flower essences.
And how did you come to differentiate how the essences would work with children as contrasted with adults?
Experience, giving them to children, seeing the results, collecting the information. My first book, The Essential Flower Essence Handbook, in a dozen languages, very soon to be in German, used by doctors across borders, a great honor to train their physicians, and some really sweet news, just winning the award of the best-selling audiobook of 2021 from Crystal Clarity Publishers. But anyway, this book is based on testimonials Paramhansa Yogananda gave one or two, maybe a few words of an explanation, as I mentioned, of the psycho-spiritual qualities of the food source. And then all that is researched by direct testimonials, by a very, very powerful chapter called the Biofeedback Brainstorm, where Dr. Jeffrey Cram, who has since passed, a pioneer in this country of biofeedback work with flower essences, he did his first study with spirit and nature essences. And the word in England is gobsmacked, meaning his jaw dropped, seeing the instant response of people's life force measured in the physical and the metaphysical response to flower essences. And if I may, Prisha, I'd like to read very briefly from the chapter for children and families. It's called Little Blossoms, Our Children, and it does summarize something that's a main life work of Prisha, EFL, Education for Life principles. Developmentally, children pass through 4 stages that usher them to the doorstep of adulthood. Each of these stages presents different challenges to the child. From birth to age 6, children learn about the physical world through their bodies and their senses. From age 6 to 12, roughly, they are developing their feeling and emotional nature and beginning to understand the world on subtler levels. From age 12 to 18, they deal with power and the raw will of adolescence as they begin their search for self-identity. From 18 to 24, they focus more on developing the reasoning side of their nature. And as you can imagine, with these 20 flower essences, in those 4 categories, there are 5 flower essences each to help them strengthen their higher self, to attain more fully their highest potential as they're growing. It's not at all that they have to grow up to start their lives. That begins at birth. And it's so beautiful to see the purity and oftentimes the immediacy with how flower essences will touch our children, the instantaneous nature. And, you know, I don't want to mislead you. I don't want to make false claims, oh, these help everyone all the time. If anyone were to say that to me, I certainly wouldn't believe it. That would be immediately discredited. But often enough, we see a gobsmacking kind of response for the children with their openness.
So how much time do you think an essence would take? I think you said 1 to 2 weeks, but let's say that a parent notices a little earlier that there's a change or much longer. How do they know how long before the child needs no more that particular essence and maybe another? That
Okay, very good
was the
question.
chat.
Oh, good, good. Yes, and we can start answering questions. And Prisha and I, we joked as we prepared that we have enough information for you for, excuse me, a weekend seminar, but we won't give you that long. So when you see the results, when you see that positive change, give it another maybe 2 days so the child can stabilize in that quality that, again, they already have within them and is reinforced by the flower essence.
And what should parents expect as well as not expect about using essences with children?
Well,
like, for instance, maybe not thinking this is going to be a quick fix.
Okay, well, first of all, expect, at least as I understand it, is a tricky word. If we expect, if we have positive expectations, great. But if we expect in a way that we'll be disappointed when we don't see what we want to see, then there's a pressure put on the child, and that's something we don't want. So to have that positive expectation, why not? And I'd like to read to you something from Ananda's book on education for life, how to further support our children. Remember the importance to the child of your own magnetic influence. Live as much as possible yourself on higher levels of awareness. The more expanded you are in your consciousness, the more expanded the children in your care will become. So we cannot emphasize strongly enough the importance of example. If you have that positive expectation with a certain flower essence and the relationship your child is forming with it, great. And we could apply these principles as well to the exams that are coming up already next month for your children. And Prisha and I also have talked in the past which flower essences are most used in the different countries. It's different for every country. And what we see in India is that avocado is very big for this country of India, where people have this wonderful drive to succeed, to improve themselves, to reach even a super conscious and solution oriented state of mind, to not just better themselves and their families, but their country, and in a sense as well to better this world. Because when we change, when we awaken to and embrace our finest qualities, we do change the world. So there's a rather broad answer for you. And my goodness, we're almost to the place in our presentation to ask for questions. Prisha, you're spearheading that. So what do you see? Is there a flood? Is there a trickle of questions? Because this is your program.
It is not my program, it's ours.
No, I meant the bigger you. Excuse me.
And I think right now the parents are beginning to think about, what could I give my child? So here is one. Anything for increasing love and harmony in the family, and that is from Rahul Ravi.
Thank you. As it so happens, I have a perfect testimonial on the grape essence, which is exactly the one that you would want. Grape is for love, perfect love, unconditional, divine love, and even further devotion, which means a devoted, committed love. So it would be the opposite of a flaky love, a codependent, needy kind of love, but a love that includes and embraces noble ideals. So here is a testimonial from an aromatherapist and one of our home study course students in, if I can pronounce this correctly, Yokohama, Japan. Okay, and an initial here, B, is a junior high school student. He was always scolded by his elder sister for not greeting her. He was always in a bad mood in the morning because he was sleepy. I advised him to take grape essence. He was then able to greet his sister and talked more rather than having a sour face. He seemed to look much happier and healthier than before. So that's an example of what we can positively expect for our children, for our families. And just as we see in a home with multiple pets, instead of giving each of the pets their own flower essence program and driving the owners crazy, we give one flower essence for the entire family unit. So it can be in the morning tea for the children, but as mentioned, best not with food, So tea is okay, coffee for the adults is okay. But if it comes to something like a smoothie with many ingredients, best to wait. If it's a full meal, wait a couple hours. If it's just a banana, wait a half hour. So 10 minutes before a meal or an hour after is fine as far as when the dosage is taken. And it could be a wonderful bonding experience for the family. Hey everyone, let's take our grape flower essence now and have fun with it. And how interesting that the children, as we talked earlier, with their more simple nature, they don't need affirmations. We do.
Interesting. Oh, that picks up on a question about can we give flower essences around the mealtime. I want to go back, though, to Rahul's question about increasing love and harmony, because let's say that there was some incident and the child or the parents are having trouble forgiving. So that would bring in, is it raspberry? Is that the one?
Perfect. Yes,
And so there might
absolutely.
be several things that are in, like this need to get more harmony and love. It may not be, I would guess, only a grape thing if there are other issues like that, forgiveness. How would you go about that? Would you talk to, well, you take it from here. I think you know what I'm trying to ask.
Okay, and if I can anticipate how you might finish that sentence, is forgiveness a predominant quality that the family unit is working on? In which case it would be raspberry instead of the grape essence. Raspberry, yes, it is for forgiveness, but the key qualities are kind-heartedness and compassion. The secondary qualities, you might say, are forgiveness, empathy, sympathy, and then we go to the opposite side of the essence coin, as I say, because you cannot cut off the back side of a coin. There will always be two sides to the coin. The essences would help to overcome holding grudges, perhaps lashing out from holding grudges, which children can do a lot. Maybe they don't have yet the emotional maturity or the tools to handle a certain upset they're having, and they just act it out. If that's what's happening, if it's a predominant quality for the family, go to raspberry essence. Yes, for everyone. No one will be hurt. It won't be a wrong essence for anyone. However, that brings up another really important point that spirit and nature essences and in India, Yogananda flower essences do recommend single and serial essences used serially. And the reason being is that each essence has such a, not a loud voice, but a complete, a full resonant voice, helping us with so many qualities at one time that we can often see quicker results, more noticeable, more obvious results. And here's an obvious point that a woman just last week mentioned who called and was very thrilled to have learned about these flower essences. She said, if we take combinations, how do we know which one is working, which one is kicking in for us? We can't really know. We can guess and maybe guess really well, but that is not to discredit combinations, because you see behind you are chakra blend flower essences that are now also available in India. Again, this is the American label, but these are combinations of 3 flower essences each within the line of 20. And they are very specifically and carefully matched to the particular strengths of each one of our 7 chakras. And well, last week I talked about the first chakra essence with the spinach for simplicity, that sense of trust, very first chakra oriented. Strawberry For dignity, also very much for grounding, important for the root chakra. And tomato, strength and courage to face our challenges. So there's a mouthful for you. I hope that covers the question, the answer of the question.
And
Please feel free.
we have several questions about what do I do about this or that. Since we know that exams and stress are going to be a big thing for many parents, what would you suggest in general, not maybe focusing on any particular child, but what would help stress? And also then, could you talk about stress in parents who are dealing with all of this? Because in fact, that was another question about what do we do who are faced with so much difficulty in the pandemic and around exam time. And now these last couple of years and this year, we've got the double whammy of the pandemic and the exams right together. It's a load.
Right. Does it get any more fun? Well, right before we started our Zoom this morning, the three of us with Bara were talking about happiness being a choice. We could say that about any positive quality. We could say it about any negative quality. Happiness is the positive, stress is very much the negative. And my friends, we really, really should do everything we can to avoid stress, especially in these times. As Prisha mentioned, the double whammy, the pandemic going on 2 years, my goodness, which is a large part of a child's life to this point. And now the exams coming and the stress in the children, in the parents, in the home. So we want to be aware of that overarching environment and to create the best environment we can for our children, for ourselves, from that powerful quote from J. Donald Walters, Ananda ji, to be examples, to be role models ourselves. First, I'll address for the children. We talked about the avocado essence already. We started with spinach essence. Both of those are excellent for exam time. And again, recommended singly. So 1 to 2 weeks on each. It can be shorter. And again, I didn't mention yet, but okay, so maybe your child finishes avocado program in the evening. The next day, you can start with spinach. There doesn't have to be a pause. That's for the child. And then we come to the child's environment, and that is you as the mother or the father or the in-laws or whoever is a significant role model in your child or your children's lives, to model for them the very best you can do. And of course, we want to see our children succeed. Of course, we want to see them make the very best of their lives. The one thing we don't want to do is the equivalent of what can happen in not the happiest of marriages. We don't want to nag. We don't want to be ragging on them, you might say, but to inspire, to encourage, to create a strawberry environment for them, which I mentioned again from the first chakra, that dignity within yourself as an uplifting role model, and to give them the grounding, the emotional space, the intellectual space to feel completely supported by you, to have your support without judgment, without pressure. How do you feel when you're trying to accomplish something and someone pressures you? We could turn it around and see how you would answer that question. Oh, it doesn't feel so good. And these thought forms that we have as parents can really impact the child's ability to study, to learn. And yes, it's okay to be driven. That's a neutral quality, we could say, but it depends how you interpret it, how you emulate it. So please take your strawberry. And I think that Risha will want to touch on a subject certainly near and dear to my heart. We have 20 flower essences. I have written 20 children's books where each of the flower essences is personified as a child, a girl or a boy, according to a chart that we don't have time right now to go into, but where 10 of the flower essences present a more feminine side and 10 more masculine. You can see this is Bradley Banana, an embodiment of humility rooted in calmness. And the antithesis is the proud, and we might even say arrogant pirate captain. Not many people have a last name, Banana, Mr. Banana, Ms. Banana. You don't hear that too often. And so these little children in the books can touch your children's lives. There's Bradley in a more startled kind of expression of humility, but it's a wonderful, fun story for children. And I mention that because right now, I first started writing these about 12 or 14 years ago, and they've kind of been sitting around. And just the last few weeks, I realized, you know what, it's time to have all 20 of these books available. So very, very soon you will also see Tommy Tomato and many siblings going on here. Prisha, I don't know how we are with the questions. If you wanted me to explain the inspiration for these books, that moment, that aha moment, or shall we move forward with questions?
We do have a question about, are the books available here in India? That I'm sure is going to be coming soon, but what is soon? What can we count on?
Yeah, soon. Well, let's just say I will do my best, which is actually a phrase that Mr. Walters, Kriyananda, inspired me with, even as I do a consultation and I'm working on developing the very best flower essence program for a client possible. So I will say I will do my best, but right now I am living in the world of Tommy Tomato and the mighty Storm Dragon. So here's a book to help children understand how to be courageous, how to be brave, how to have mental strength. And I know it sounds like I'm a little bit avoiding answering you, but I think the most honest answer is I'm doing my best. I will do my best. And thank you for that, because Bradley should be in ebook format, and I will speak to my publisher about that and see what we can do for you. They are on their way.
Good, good. By the way, that title, Bradley Banana and the Jolly Good Pirate, and then what was it, Tommy Tomato and what?
The mighty Storm Dragon.
Mighty Storm Dragon.
Yes.
I think you said at one time that you got your inspiration for these titles from Harry Potter. Is that true?
Well, not the titles, but the idea to write for children. As so much of my life is tied in with children, I mentioned the children's choir. We have these books, the plays for children, all kinds of things. And so I think it's time to share that story. It was a very hot summer, not as hot as India by any means, but hot certainly for Californians. I was in town doing errands and thought, what a perfect way to break up the afternoon to go see the latest Harry Potter film as a matinee. and I was in the movie theater. It was cool. It was lovely. The children were being children all around me. It was quite a wonderful environment. And there was a scene in the film where Harry Potter in school was able to perform with incredible immediate success, a certain magic trick that his other schoolmates weren't able to do. And I actually felt like this burst of energy in my heart. I was thrilled out of my seat to have that inspiration. And in that moment, why not? Let's have a series of children's books. And the first one that I wrote was Samantha Strawberry, having talked about Strawberry for the adults, for exams, how to be a better role model for their children. And in that way, as opposed to pressure, to give them the perfect environment to study at their very best and highest level. And it's been a thrilling process. And right now, working with the illustrator, creating the storyboard and seeing the dance between the text and the illustrations. And Tommy Tomato not only has red hair, but everyone in his family has red hair. It's just who the tomatoes are, the tomato family. And I've got a wonderful illustrator, Tommy himself. You know, sometimes the cartoon characters have really large heads. So he already, in a sense, looks like a tomato, and he embodies that sense of fearlessness. And I'm not going to give away the ending of this book because it has a fantastic surprise ending for you. So having said that, I will do my very best to get Tommy to you as quickly as possible.
Well, I think we have to keep looking at the website, which again, I've posted on the chat to be sure when things are available. And I would perhaps like to come back to some of the questions that some of the parents were asking about specific things like your specially able children. And they have, of course, their own kind of stress at other times than just now during the exams. But is there anything that you do suggest for the specially abled children in the way of classes?
That's a very interesting question. And because my mind was still on what you just said, let me present that idea first. That the Essential Flower Essence Handbook and Flower Essences for Animals, that's in English and Japanese, are both free online on our website. So how can you get these books? Go to spiritinnature.com, and that's with 2 dashes, spirit-in-nature.com. And forgive me, I must show you this photo because I think it's my favorite photo in the world. If you can see that, as if everyone has a duck in their living room and a hamster over their shoulder kind of thing. So now I think we can get back to your the question that you presented, Prisha, which is for specially abled children. And I love that affirmation instead of disabled, because you know, we're all disabled, aren't we? We're disabled because we're in this world and we have so many challenges. So anything special for them, because there is not that separation between abled children and normal children, whatever that is. And we talk about a spectrum now instead of hard and fast this or that. It's this and that. So it would be the same. It would be the same because the spinach essence is also for stress and for children who are abled in the way that you described, maybe with a certain frustration that they have in this world to help them come to a sense of peace and calmness within themselves. So there is really no difference in their needs. And also, I should explain that we are talking generically. The book also has a 10-page chapter on each flower essence based on the testimonials that have come in for 4.5 decades, 45 years this spring. And a book, by its very nature, is somewhat generic. However, it does cover many of the issues we're talking about right now for children. And in the children's chapter, you will see a brief explanation of the issues that specific essences will address for them in most cases. As we mentioned, the family using grape essence, well, what if there are grudges? What if there's a need for forgiveness? Then we go to raspberry essence. That's getting a little more specific. Who knows your children better than you do as parents? Isn't that the case?
Saloni, who had asked a question about stress earlier, also wanted to know about, is there something to uplift and stay positive and overcome moodiness? Or would that be the same kind of thing as stress, the same essence?
It depends how you verbalize it, and that can affect the assessment of flower essences. But here we're talking about two. The first is cherry for cheerfulness because it is for moods, and I make the funny distinction between cherry and orange essences. Cherry for cheerfulness, orange for enthusiasm, is that cherry is for waking up on the wrong side of the bed. We have that expression, whereas orange is for waking up on the wrong side of your life. So in other words, a little bit deeper, a little bit beyond superficial. And I'm not saying for cherry it is superficial, but for that slight moodiness, it would be the cherry essence as opposed to orange. But the second one I thought of, as you described it, Prisha, was not orange for the deeper, but coconut for finding solutions that we talked about, for, you could say, getting unstuck, for any kind of test. And in fact, quite possibly some of you parents will say, wait a minute, I feel to give my child coconut essence for exams because it is for getting unstuck, for especially the kind of test that you cannot get out of. That's why coconut has the nickname of being the going to the dentist essence. And there's a fantastic story in the handbook about myself going to the dentist. It was a horrible experience. I knew what was coming. The dentist was late. I'm sitting there thinking, you know, I can just walk out and maybe even not be seen. However, that won't change what's going on with my tooth. You know, it's not very often at all that a tooth will heal itself. If there's a problem, you're stuck and you're in for something maybe unpleasant before you come out the other end of it. So there is coconut. And since we're on the subject of coconut, I'll express and explain a concept that we have that is explained in both the books of a signature essence. It was formerly called a theme essence, and it is a basic predominant quality in the personality of a human being, an animal. I've not seen that for plants, but I have seen it for countries. And coconut essence is the signature essence for India. So congratulations. And that means that India, in its own expansive personality, is very coconut oriented, very much able to transcend and to transmute difficulties in our lives. And of course, it's a country very polarized in finances. Every country has government polarities, but there is a very deep, deep consciousness in India that matches so well the depth of flower essences as a modality for well-being. And I cannot encourage you enough to use them, to try them out, to promote them to others, to receive training that I think Prisha is going to come to that as well, that we're looking at when the interest builds and grows enough, we will have training programs for India. And probably at this point, there'll be Zoom where we can connect, where you can get more information more directly as we have even in this brief and very blessed time together. So I think we're getting close to the end.
We are at the end, but
we're at it.
let's say that it is time for us to honor the 9 o'clock ending that we said we would have. But if any of you would like to stay over a little bit and ask questions, there haven't been any recent questions that I've seen. Several people are saying they are looking forward to the book. And by the way, Uma said that she enjoyed the blueberry essence and
blackberry.
Or is it blackberry?
Yes.
Okay. And she really enjoyed the chakra essences. I don't know if there will be any more questions. Mona certainly contributed quite a few of the questions tonight. KB Parashar looks like. So anybody who would like to leave, please do. Remember that you can look at yoganandaessences.com, Yogananda flower essences,
Yogananda flower essences
in India, for more things about essences here. By the way, this is what the essences look like in India, very similar. And otherwise, we'll stay just a little while over. So KB, what would you like to ask?
And may I interrupt and say goodbye to those who are leaving right now. And thank you for your time. Thank you for the care and love that you give to your families, and hopefully to include flower essences for their well-being and for the gentleness and the potency of the essences to touch your children and help them achieve what we ideally want to see for them, which is the happiest of lives and the most fulfilling.